Have you ever asked yourself, do they mean it? Not when they say, I love you, but when they say nothing at all. When they're silent, when you're unsure, when they don't text you every day, don't show too much, aren't romantic like in the movies. But there's something in them that keeps you from cutting the connection completely. And you wonder, am I being naive? Am I fooling myself? Or is this a love so deep it doesn't need to be displayed? Carl Jung once said, real feelings are not loud. They are quiet, but deeply present. And perhaps real love is the same. It doesn't come to overwhelm. It doesn't play games to keep you addicted. It shows up, close enough for you to feel warmth, but with enough space for you to still be yourself. In a world where people teach you how to text to keep someone hooked, where affection is calculated like a psychological chess game, real love becomes the hardest thing to believe in, but also the one most worth believing in. In today's video, I'm not giving you a textbook definition of true love. I'm bringing you 6 quiet signs, gestures that are not glamorous, not surface level, but you'll feel them if someone is truly staying, not because they need you, but because they see you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. And to Carl Jung, whatever is real always carries its language. It doesn't need to be spoken, but it cannot be mistaken. True love is not loud. It doesn't need to be named, because it exists in silence. Not everyone who says, I love you, truly loves you. And not everyone who remains silent has nothing to say. Some people don't know how to use words, who aren't fluent in the language of emotions, who can't write love poems. But their presence is the deepest form of love. They don't label their feelings with sentences, but every action, every glance, every moment of quiet between you carries a kind of subtle code that only a still heart can decipher. Carl Jung once said, real emotions don't need to be spoken to exist. They are encoded in energy. And when someone truly loves you, they often don't know how to express it like an actor. They're awkward, clumsy, but you'll feel something that can't be faked. Presence. Not just physical presence, but a presence with the deepest part of who they are. Fake love often comes with beautiful performances. People know when to say the right things, how to make you feel loved. But they don't stay when you're no longer easy to be with. Real love, on the other hand, is often a tranquil experience. Not flashy, not dramatic, not performative. It doesn't confuse you. It makes you feel peaceful. Jung called this state emotional synchronicity, when two people don't need to understand each other through language, but touch each other through a shared stillness. In today's world, where people rush to prove their love through stories, long texts, and grand gestures, the one who truly loves you often doesn't stand out. But they are the one who makes you feel you don't have to perform to be kept. They don't love you because you're happy, or successful, or at your best. They love you at the points you never thought anyone would stay for. You don't know that because they said it. You know because they didn't leave. They didn't judge. They didn't disappear when you were not okay. And that is something you can't demand from anyone, except from someone who truly loves you. When true love doesn't make you anxious, it makes you feel inexplicably at peace. Sign 1. They don't try to make you comfortable. They make you stop trying to appear cozy. Fake love often comes wrapped in pleasant performances. They know how to make you laugh. They know when to stay silent. They read you and play exactly the role you expect. But true love is different. They don't show up to get it right, they show up as they are. And strangely, instead of making you excited, they make you lower your guard. They don't say all the right things, but somehow you stop needing to monitor yourself when you're with them. Carl Jung would say that's the energy of authentic presence. When someone has moved beyond the persona, they no longer live to please you. They live to live truthfully. And because of that, they unconsciously grant you the most precious permission, to live truthfully. When you're with someone who truly loves you, you don't need to be your best version. You can breathe, you can be tired, you can be silent, you can have nothing to say, and still feel loved. That's not easy comfort. That's the quiet safety no one teaches you to recognize. But your soul knows it the moment it feels it. Sign 2. They don't show up to make you feel special. They show up when you think there's nothing special left in you. Have you ever noticed that the person who truly loves you often arrives when you're at your dimmest? When you're disappointed in yourself? When you're not as good as you hoped? When you think, who would even want to be around me now? And they stay. No grand words, no rehearsed lines. They don't leave. Jung would say that's love that has surpassed the persona. Not love for the version you present, but love for the parts you haven't even reached within yourself. It's easy to love someone when they're winning, but someone who truly loves you doesn't see you as less when you're broken. They don't make you feel special. They make you feel enough. And you no longer have to fight to be seen. You are seen, even when you're fragile, messy, lost. That's love born from a resonance between two selves, not filtered through expectations, not hiding the shadow. It's the place where you can fall apart and not be judged, because they're not here to fix you. They're here to create a space where you can be yourself without asking for permission. Sign 3. They don't need you to be okay to stay. They stay to walk with you through the not okay. Fake love often walks away the moment you're no longer easy to love. When you talk more, go silent more, ask more, retreat more. But the one who truly loves you doesn't pull back when you start getting honest about your pain. They're not scared by your wounds, because they're not looking for an ideal version. Jung once said, "We connect more through our shadow than our light." The one who truly loves you doesn't avoid your shadow. They don't try to fix you, preach to you, or leave you because you're too much. They don't need you to be okay to love you. They accept that humans aren't always bright and cheerful. They know emotions get messy, bad days are real, and healing isn't linear. And because of that, they don't make you feel like a burden. On the contrary, they make you think this: having someone stay when you're not okay is a kind of miracle that not everyone gets to experience. And once you've felt that, you stop calling love something dazzling. You start calling love an unconditional presence right when you have nothing left to offer. Sign 4. They don't try to change you. They inspire you to grow because you feel safe and secure. None of us is perfect, and someone who truly loves you knows that. They don't love a future version of who you might become. They love you exactly where you are, still healing, still unsure, still figuring things out. But in that gaze that doesn't demand change, you begin to grow. Not because you feel like you're not enough, but as you think deeply, accept without conditions. Carl Jung once said, "Change only happens when someone feels deeply accepted." And that's what true love does. It doesn't ask you to mature to deserve it. It doesn't use affection as a reward when you behave correctly. It simply stays present, calm, without pressure. And in that safe presence, you begin to lower your guard. Change arises not from pressure, but from gratitude. You want to become a better version of yourself, not to keep someone from leaving, but to honor the love that chose to stay. That's a quiet transformation that can only unfold when your heart no longer lives in defense mode. Sign 5. They don't say much, but they always know when to say, "I'm still here." True love doesn't need many words. Someone who truly loves you may not always say what you want to hear, but they possess something far more precious, an intuitive connection. They know when you're hiding sadness behind a smile. They know when your silence isn't peace. It's fatigue, so deep you've run out of words. And they don't panic. They don't pressure you to explain. They remain as a quiet, grounded presence that lets you know you're not carrying this alone. Jung called this energetic synchrony. When two souls don't need translation, they feel each other through presence. No one reaches out to pat your back. No one tries to fix you with forced optimism. But somehow, in a glance, in their patience, you know, I'm not being abandoned. I don't need to perform. I need to breathe. Sign 6. They don't make you shrink so they can feel bigger. They make you feel like you can expand without losing them. Some relationships make you speak less, dream smaller, and dim your light to keep the other person from feeling insecure. But true love doesn't compete with your shine. It doesn't need you to shrink. It doesn't ask you to hold your breath to keep the peace. The one who truly loves you helps you feel like you can expand in your dreams, your thoughts, your journey, and they won't disappear. Jung would say, when one soul loves another soul, they don't try to possess. They grow together, and that's the strongest sign. You don't feel afraid to be yourself. You're not scared to speak deeply. You're not afraid to express what's different. You're not afraid to succeed beyond them. You're not frightened to fall apart in front of them, because that love doesn't box you in. It doesn't ask you to be smaller. It stands beside you like a quiet anchor, so you can become who you were always meant to be, without fear of being left behind. When we gather all the signs of true love, unconditional presence, a gaze free of judgment, the ability to feel you even when you haven't spoken, the safety that allows you to grow without being controlled, we begin to see an obvious pattern. True love doesn't try to be anything, and yet it reaches parts of you no one else has ever touched. It doesn't explode. It doesn't demand. It doesn't rush into your darkness with urgency. It simply stays, softly, patiently, as if to say, I'm not going anywhere. Take all the time you need. And to Carl Jung, this is the mark of a connection built on self-to-self, not born of need, nor from fear of abandonment, but from an inner fullness ready to share its light without needing to possess. False love makes you feel like you must do something to keep them. True love makes you feel like you don't need to try. Not because you're perfect, but because you no longer need to perform. When true love enters, you breathe more easily. You sleep more deeply. You overthink less. The mental reruns stop. Of every glance, every message, every moment overanalyzed. You stop calculating how not to seem too much. Because you're no longer an option, trying to be chosen. You are someone being loved, not for being flawless, but for being real. Jung once said, love is the process of healing between two shadows. No one enters love without their wounds. But true love doesn't deepen those wounds. It doesn't activate your fear every day. It doesn't ask you to be less sensitive, less intense, or less honest. It looks at all those parts and says, you don't need to shrink. Just be you. The rest we'll figure out together. That's not fantasy. That's rare, but real. And once you've felt that kind of love, you won't settle for any love that only accepts you on conditions. Because now you know. True love doesn't make you become someone else. It makes you become more of who you are. If you've ever loved someone but constantly lived in a state of uncertainty, if you've ever woken up with a heart that felt unsteady, unsure if they were truly there, then maybe this video has reminded you of the most important truth. True love doesn't make you wonder, am I lovable? It helps you realize you've always been worthy. It's just that the wrong person wasn't still enough to see it. And if today you've dared to distinguish between true love and a version of loneliness disguised as connection, you're already a step closer to your authentic self. Carl Jung once said, true love heals the shadow. It doesn't trigger more fear. It lets you breathe easier, not because you love less, but because you no longer have to hold yourself together just to be loved. It doesn't make you chase. It stays quietly, steadily, without performance, like a kind of safety you may never have known before. If this video touched something inside you, a part once labeled too much, too deep, too emotional, then stay with light through shadows. Here, you don't have to shrink to fit someone else's version of love. You only have to be real, and light will always find what no longer pretends. Click subscribe if you want to keep walking this journey, the one back to your original worth. And before you go, I want to leave you with just one message. The person who truly loves you won't make you feel special. They'll help you finally stop questioning whether you deserve to be loved.